to another episode of Wacky Wednesday. Today you are joined by David. Unfortunately, your normal guest, host even, Dudley, is late for the train as we depart and go to a gaming convention. So, where is Dudley, I wonder? So we're here now. I don't know where Dudley is. Oh, what are you doing here?
It's me.
How'd you get here?
Magic.
Cool. Alright, let's go in.
Hello internet users, and welcome to another Wacky Wednesday. In this video I'm going to talk about my trip to EGX Rezzed, which is a video game convention held in the City of London. It is here that I got to play some unreleased games in their early stages that are set to come out either this year or next. It's quite an exciting convention, and it's a good one to go to meet the developers, which I'll get into as the video progresses. And this video is going to be an excuse for me to talk about some of the video games I got to play and give you my quick impressions. So without much further ado, in the words of Super Mario, let's go! Wahoo! The first game I got to play was a 2D puzzle platformer with exploration elements by the name of Iconclasts. This game is very beautiful with lovely sprite work. It looks like a more modern take on an old Super Nintendo style game, which is something that I certainly appreciate. I really love the art style of this game. I think it was very vibrant, it pops, the main character moves very fluidly, which is something that's very appealing, and the main gimmick or the main draw of this game is the wrench item that your character rocks. It's used as a weapon, but it's mainly used to solve environmental puzzles. You can use it to raise platforms, move them from side to side, open doors which are set on timers, so you've got to open it up and then run and quickly get through it before it closes, as well as other puzzles that develop further as you go through the game. The thing that really jumped out to me was just the way in which you maneuver through the environment. The controls were very tight, and it was just a really lovely time. Quite simple. I was playing no doubt an early level, but despite that I did get stuck at one point, not because I couldn't solve the puzzle, but because there was a cog to move a platform that I didn't notice. So I was running from one old cog to another, and I couldn't get there in time, and that was just because I didn't notice there was another cog that I could have used to hold the platform in place, where I could actually then use it to progress. So not a fault with the games, it was more a fault of myself not being observant enough to notice that element. But I had a really good time this one. It's it's not a whole bunch to say from the 10 minutes I got to spend with it, but it's definitely something I'm going to be checking out further. Might grab it from a PS4. I might just wait for the Switch version, which I believe they're going to add some extra content to, so maybe that's going to be more enticing by it being a slightly longer game. Look like it will probably get quite challenging as it goes through, but certainly a good game to start off with, and something that's 2D puzzle platforming that's sort of in my wheelhouse and wasn't very intimidating as the first game that I went and played at EGX Rezzed. So this one gets a thumbs up. The next game my friend David and I got to play was The Hatching. This is a B-movie inspired game in which you take control of a mutated crocodile-like creature. It's played from a top-down perspective almost similar to the old Metal Gear games, and like those games, it's actually a stealth game in which you sneak around in the waters and the grass and eat your victims. It was in the very early stages when we looked at it. I spoke to the developer and he said it was not going to be released for at least another year. Despite this, I actually think it looked rather good. The animations were very crisp, the creature moved around in a believable crocodile-like fashion, and when you got the stealth kills, as you can see in the footage, it looks really, really gruesome as you sort of flip them up, and there's different attacks you can do, but ultimately you want to not be seen because as we found out, the enemies develop and they get guns and have different things to combat you with, so it's all about sneaking up on the foes, luring them into a false sense of security, and then biting at them. And you have to think like a crocodile, you have to think like you're an alligator, and strike when the iron is hot. I think this game looks really promising, and I think it's one that's definitely worth keeping an eye on as it develops, because as I mentioned, it is early, but I think it's something that's quite unique. I love the idea, I love that it's the B-movie inspirations, I love the kills, very gruesome, very satisfying. It's just a really good premise, and I really hope this one does well when it comes out. No idea what it's coming out on, no doubt PC, but hopefully it will come to some consoles as well. But yeah, definitely want to keep an eye on this, because it's something I'd never heard of, and that's what going to these conventions is all about, finding things that you had no idea that you wanted, but then you see it and you're like, actually no, I do want to play this. This looks sweet. So yeah, another good game and another thumbs up. Next on the docket was a science fiction game in which you take control of an archaeologist and you're joined by a robotic sidekick, and this game was entitled Heaven's Vault. Visually, this game is very striking. Your character moves with sort of time skips, which is quite interesting, and there's a sort of timeline, there's these hieroglyphs that you have to decipher, and you sort of fade in and out as you move across this rather beautiful land. But it's a game that doesn't really demo well, as it's very plot heavy, there's a lot of things to decipher and puzzles you need to solve, and it doesn't tell you at all whether you're right or wrong, you sort of make guesses. And we're a bit silly with this demo as my mate Dave and I were playing through it and trying to work out what was going on. It wasn't until we sort of went, okay, we've played enough of this, that we noticed there were cards on the table that gave some clues. Should have noticed those a bit earlier, which might have made the game a bit easier to actually get what on earth was going on. But it's interesting. I don't think it's my type of game. It's visually very striking, but as you can see in the footage, if this looks like something that you'd be interested in, this is what the game is. You're going around, you're exploring, and you're trying to solve puzzles and work out, no doubt, there's a very intricate story going on, but I would be none the wiser to actually telling you what that story entails. But I like the character design, I like the art, I just don't think it's personally my cup of tea. But if it's something that you're interested in, check it out. Moving on, the next game is a team-based mech assault game called Blazing Core, which is set to release in September on Steam. This game is immediately appealing in the sense that you are piloting mechs, and whenever you have a mech assault game, or well, this isn't mech assault as the brand mech assault, but a game in which you pilot mechs, I always go into these with optimism. I always think, how can you mess up a game in which you control a big huge mech and you're stomping on enemies, blowing up other robots? It's immediately appealing to that teenage boy inside all of us. Whether we are teenage boys or even teenage girls, we all have that inside of us that makes us go, yeah, piloting a mech, that's cool. But it's actually way more difficult than I ever envisioned, and it normally comes from the combat never being quite as satisfying and the slow movement speed that's inherent with piloting a mech. So, how does Blazing Core stack up? Well, I would say the game is decent. The mech has a nice weight to it, there's a good variety of weapons, and both the third person and first person are viable. You can use both. Aiming, it feels very tight, but there's nothing about the game that was truly spectacular. It was fine. You know, everything worked as I thought it would work. It looks nice, but there's nothing that I was like, yes, this is really what's going to make me want to play lots and lots of rounds of this. Naturally, I'm not one that's immediately drawn to online multiplayer games, so it has to do something really spectacular to draw me in. And this one, it works, it feels fine, it looks great, and you'll know if it's for you just by sort of looking at its footage. And I can confirm, you know, the quality is there. This is definitely very adequately made, and yeah, I think it's got legs. It's certainly got some legs. So if this is something that you're interested in, you're looking for a Mech Assault game that isn't the brand Mech Assault, then Blazing Core is going to be right up your alley. And I think it gets a thumb slightly up, but not a full endorsement. Following on from Blazing Core, the next game I got to play was a 3D platform action game called Oniria. Similar to the Hatchling, this game was in a pre-alpha stage, so it was very, very early. The development studio, D Realms, had only just been formed, and they've been working on the game for what they said was 6 months. And considering the time frame in which they put what I played together, it was very, very impressive. It has a 90s vibe, and it reminded me of games like Klonoa and 40 Winks, as well as, most appropriately, Nights, A Journey into Dreams, which was a game from the Sega days. I think it was started on the Sega Saturn. The game has a nice look to it. You play as a blue-haired boy, and you're jumping through these dream worlds fighting nightmare creatures that have invaded, and your weapon of choice is a dream catcher. And as you sort of strike the foes, they get caught in your dream catcher, and once you've got sort of 5 circles, you've catched 5 creatures that have sort of filled up your gauge. You then have to dispel them in the light, and then they're sort of taken up. But what it seemed like was, once you catch creatures, certain pathways are only open to you once you've collected enough of the enemies. So it might have a circle on the floor in which it shows 2 lit up dots, and then if you have 2 enemies in your dreamcatcher, you can open up that pathway and progress forward. There seems to be a lot of alternate paths that you can take, so there is some exploration elements, but it seems mostly to be focused on sort of the platforming and then the combat. The combat is not, it's not super refined at this moment. There is a lock-on system, so some combat encounters go sort of similar to the way in which the 3D Zelda games work, in the sense that you can lock onto an enemy, strike them with your dreamcatcher and catch them. There is also a block button that needs to be utilised on some of the bigger enemies to sort of stun them, and then you can whack and whack them away until they are caught in your dreamcatcher. I did notice after defeating some of the bigger enemies that the icon that it displays is a different colour to usual, and this is interesting. I don't know why, but I'm sure when the full game comes out, there'll be a reason for that. But yeah, it was something that I went away from impressed, and I definitely want to keep up with this one and follow its development. It was very underground, very under the radar. Once again, just like the Hatchling, it's a game that I'd never heard of before, but it caught my attention, I should say, by just having the visuals alone, which appealed to someone like me who likes 3D platformers. I like the 3D Donkey Kong games, the Mario games, and the games I mentioned earlier, your Klonoas and your Knights. So this is one that I definitely want to keep an eye on, and it's got it's got a style to it. It's got some interest to it. Also, the ending of my little demo here, in which I got completely overwhelmed by nightmare creatures. I got attacked by so many, and crowd control is it's difficult at the time. It's not a Dynasty Warriors type game where you can kill hundreds of enemies all at once. So yeah, it's saying the people who make the game seem really nice. They're very approachable, very friendly. We all chuckled at the ending of this demo, and I've walked away going, yeah, this is one that I'm definitely going to keep an eye on and follow the development of, as that's a Dudley game for sure. Next up is Windlands 2, the only VR game I played at EGX Rezzed. This one is very interesting. You're in a desert world in which you are playing co-op with 3 other people. I played with my mate David and 2 randomers. I should mention the person in the footage that I've grabbed was very enthusiastic and was certainly captured into this game world as he went about the place. It's very enjoyable to watch. So the way this game works is you play with the Oculus Rift controllers, and we had the Oculus Rift on our retinas, our eyeballs, over our sockets, and you go about the world with this sort of grappling hook mechanic, where each arm you could sort of stretch out and swing across the land like Spider-Man. It was very cool, actually. I've played a few VR games, and this would be the second best VR game I've played. Only one below the Eve game that I played, which was in a sort of spaceship and you're in a cockpit, which was very immersive because there was no fake sense of movement. But with this one, as you're dragging yourself with your arms, it doesn't matter that your legs are stationary when you're in VR, so it doesn't sort of break the immersion, as you're just using your arms to sort of grapple and swing along the place. And it works really well. The controls are great, the way in which it doesn't make you sick at all, as the camera tracks where you're looking very well. And I had a lot of fun with this one, just swinging around the environment. What didn't work as well was the bow and arrow, where you had to hold the inside buttons of the controller and hold them real close together and try and pull back as if you're emulating firing your bow and arrow. It was a bit finicky, that one. I had some problems with doing that, and there's a sort of boss at the end of the level that you had to sort of fight, which I think we failed pretty tremendously at conquering. And the co-op nature of the game wasn't particularly, there was no sort of rhyme or reasons to why you would co-op this game, but it's cool that you exist in this world in VR with other people in VR. It's certainly impressive tech, and I think the game looks very nice, very beautiful, and it really does draw you into its world with its controls and just the way it plays. But naturally, like all VR games, you do look like a tool when you're playing it, so be warned, you will look silly. But yeah, Windlands 2, roaring recommendation. I definitely think this is one of the best VR games on the market at this time. Thumbs up indeed. So now is the time where I get to talk about Shaq Fu, a Legend Reborn. Yes, a sequel to the infamous Shaq Fu from the Super Nintendo days. It bears very little resemblance to the old Shaq Fu. It's straight up a comedy game, and it's also a brawler, a side-scrolling brawler a la Streets of Rage or Final Fight, and I think this one was just fun. It takes away all of the naffness of the original Shaq Fu, and it's just a tongue-in-cheek, silly, over-the-top game. I think the only criticism I have for this is it doesn't seem there's any co-op, and the best thing about the old brawlers was just going through them with a buddy, but seemingly that's not something that you can do with Shaq Fu, a Legend Reborn. So that's a bit of a bummer if that is the case. For what it is, it's a lot of fun, and the opening theme is top notch. It really was brilliant. I loved it. I love sort of 90s hip hop, and it was that in droves. So yeah, fun game. Nothing too wild to talk about, but yeah, if you like brawlers, check it out. Whilst Shaq Fu was the last game I played that I managed to capture footage of, there are 3 more games that I wish to talk about, and one is definitely a highlight. First up is Pocket Rumble, which is coming out on the Switch. I'm not sure what other platforms it's coming to, but it's a 2D fighter, and it's styled just after the Neo Geo Pocket games. It has the same aesthetic, which is quite appealing. It's very simple, it's a 2-button fighting game, but it's also very pick up and play, a lot of fun. I can imagine it being a good thing to play on the Switch, splitting off the Joy-Cons, playing with a buddy for sort of 15-30 minutes or so, and then just putting away, playing something else. Not a whole lot of longevity I don't see to this game, but I love the look of it, I love the style of it, worth looking at. After that I played Dead Cells on the Switch, which is out on PC, I think it's on PS4 as well, but the Switch version is once again just nice to look at because it's going to be a game that's going to be very great portably. It's a roguelike Castlevania platformer. The movement is amazing. It's so appealing and stunning, the way the character moves, it's super fluid. I think even more fluid than Iconclasts, which I mentioned earlier, but yeah, it's something it's just really, really nice, real tight controls. It feels really good to play, lots of items, it has a good challenge to it. You can already see there's going to be some tough moments after just the sort of 15 minutes or so I played, but yeah, this is definitely one to pick up if you have a PC or a PS4, or if you've got a Switch, then yeah, wait for that version. I think it's going to turn out really well. So that's another great game, worth a purchase. Lastly, I have one more game to talk about, and I think I saved the best till last. I was fortunate enough to play 15 minutes of Travis Strikes Again, No More Heroes on the Switch. My mate David and I co-opted this game through the first level that they had on display, and this is very different to the previous No More Heroes games that appeared on the Wii. It's played from a top-down perspective. You can go through the entire game 2-player, one person taking on the role of the infamous Travis Touchdown, whilst the other takes on the role of Badman, not to be confused with Batman, even though he does carry a baseball bat. Bit confusing, but really, really cool characters. The music of this game is little I could hear, considering I was in such a crowded venue. Really feels like it's got that No More Heroes vibe to it, which is a game that I just adore. And the way in which you play this game, it's controlled, with just a single Joy-Con, so only 6 buttons and a control stick can be used, but the way in which it uses this controller actually benefits the game. I think it plays really, really well. It's very pick up and play. I can imagine it being something that I could play portably but also play at home, and I could also see me go for it single player and co-op. I can envision it working just as well in both scenarios. Combat is very hack and slash, which is traditional sort of No More Heroes in that sense, but the moves that you have available to you are more varied than the ones that you have in the original No More Heroes, where you can just do high attacks, low attacks, and then perform wrestling moves. In this one, you can hold down a button and you can do special moves which I think come from your power glove that Travis is now wearing. And with Batman, he can spin around, create areas of effect where you can heal, and it just played super well. I love the style, the humour is still there, the quirkiness that you come to expect from a No More Heroes game, and it just just made me so happy playing this game, and that's how I feel when I play No More Heroes. So it is a spin-off, but don't consider that a bad thing. Mario Kart is a spin-off to Super Mario, and I don't think anyone looks at Mario Kart for being worse than the original, platforming Mario series. And just like that, I think Travis Strikes Again is going to live up to the No More Heroes name. I think it's very, very worthy of it, and I'm really looking forward to playing the full game when it comes out later this year. And as a special moment for me, of really a lifetime achievement unlocked for sure, I was very, 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 very fortunate to meet the creator of No More Heroes and Killer 7, Killer is Dead, Lollipop Chainsaw, Let It Die, Cinemora, all of these fantastic games from Grasshopper Manufacturers. And I met one of my idols, the fantastic Suda-san, or as he's more commonly known, Suda51. Absolute legend. Goichi Suda is super friendly, really, really nice guy. I think I've got to have a picture with him, which you can see now, and I was just so happy to meet this man, a person I've idolised for a very, very long time. And if you stick with this channel, I'm going to be doing more coverage, certainly on Suda's games. It's something I'm very, very passionate about, and I can talk for a very long time about, but this video has gone on long enough as it is. So thank you for sticking with it, thank you for watching. This has been another Wacky Wednesday, in which I just upload random videos on a Wednesday. And if you like the content, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you next time. Bye.